Hello everybody, welcome back to PSGL Tier 3. It's myself, George, joined by Alex once again. Another week in the life of PSGL Tier 3. It is France this week, as it is for all the other PSGL tiers apart from Tier 1. A track which does not feature in our real-life F1 calendar this year, so why not get to see a little bit of it in the top flights of F1 esports racing?
Yes, good evening, George. I'm very excited for France. France being one of those more challenging circuits in aspects fairly different to the others. I mean, you've got the insane amount of tyre wear because there's so many high-speed corners where the grip is going to be absolutely gone. So I think it's going to be very entertaining, and I really do look forward to it.
Yeah, France is actually one of the tracks that I enjoy racing the most whenever I play it, especially on other sim racing titles like Assetto Corsa Competizione, because it doesn't have that chicane in the middle. You just go all the way down the straight. But it's one of those tracks that for me is an interesting one. It's difficult with tyre wear a lot of the time, especially on this game. ERS recovery can also be a little bit funky at the best of times. And the best thing about it too is that it's in like Central Europe, so the weather can also be super spicy. It's not out in the desert somewhere. It's not guaranteed to just be sunny. It has the opportunity for a little bit of rain or to be overcast or something like that. So I'm excited. We have a couple of housekeeping updates from last week though. I think if you want to just run over those quickly.
I will. So, the big news, well, there's lots of big news, but Lillian now being awarded a full-time seat in Alfa Romeo. Fully deserved. He is, of course, leading the championship. And a few things that happened at the end of last week. Felipe Sousa now has 5 seconds added to his race time in Singapore, and Corne de Backer has 5 seconds added to his race time in Singapore as well. But the big ones for this week are Andre Lopez and Roshan. Watch out for those guys because they have a 5-second time penalty at the end of this Grand Prix due to the fact that they DNF'd last week and they would have got it last week. So that's a lot there, but add 5 seconds to Andre Lopez and Roshan's race times at the end of today.
Yes, it all gets a bit confusing, but don't worry, we'll try our best to keep you abreast of everything that goes on. So let's crack on into the racing, I suppose. Time to quickly bring up the track map, I guess, before we get locked on in. Here is your quick view, your short, very short overview of Le Castellet. It is an interesting circuit with unnecessary amounts of chicanes in it, in my opinion, but very few elevation changes, lots of long radius corners that struggle for tyres and grip. So you're going to get your best work out of it when it's nice and warm and nice and busy out on track. So hoping that the game will ping up on our screens momentarily, and it does. We've got everything set and sorted, a full grid of drivers today, all 20 drivers in. This is going to be an interesting one for sure.
I completely agree. I'm just looking at the weather. It does look awfully cloudy up there. I'm hoping we're not going to get any sudden spots of rain. Everyone is, of course, on the soft, so I mean, I wish we knew weather, but at the moment it is definitely dry, and I mean, I think it should stay dry, but obviously, as you said, Central Europe, no guarantee, as Bartos Samaro is spinning out on his outlap. But yeah, France, again, is a difficult circuit, not only in the tyre wear, but you also have very high curves in really odd places. I love the way the game is designed, so you have so many horrible corners, like turn 12, for example, where if you go on the curb at all, put the power down at all, you're absolutely sent into space. So yeah, it is, well, not really.
Why is Corne de Backer already retired from the session? Is that a pit lane retirement, or is that a crashed it into a wall retirement? As far as I can tell, that's just a pit lane retirement. There's a Red Bull in the pit lane.
Yes, and yeah, that is Corne de Backer. He might have a quality ban I didn't notice. Let me just double check.
Well, whilst you find out that, we're actually getting a couple of drivers the starting laps now. Got last week's race winner, Nitro Shooter, looking to continue his fine form from the week prior. Obviously didn't score in the first race out in Spain, but last week in Singapore managed to take home that P1 prize, and as such has leapfrogged himself to second place in the championship behind Lillian. Got any update on that penalty, or whether this
I'm not seeing any quali ban.
Okay.
So
maybe he's just not interested in this qualifying session. I don't know. Maybe he's got a wrong setup, or maybe there's a connection issue or something that he needs to establish. Fix his pedals maybe before the race starts. Better to start from the back than to not start at all, I think would be the adage to go with there. But Nitro Shooter, yeah, let's circle back to that quickly. Had a great performance last time out. Very respectable as well to get that race win under the circumstances against Lillian. With all of the shenanigans that were taking place with safety cars and whatnot towards the end of that Singapore Grand Prix last time out. Nitro Shooter did comfortably kind of control the race, I feel, throughout the majority of that Grand Prix. It wasn't ever really, like, totally worry-free. There was always, like, a slight bit of danger, I think, a pending threat from a couple of drivers behind, but handled it very, very well. And hopefully this can be the start of something really potent and powerful for Nitro Shooter. I look forward to seeing what he's got to offer moving into the rest of the season.
Yep, I mean, he did do a very impressive performance last week. He had that stunning pole lap, which, I mean, it was very close behind. So Lillian was very close behind, but nonetheless, a very quick lap from Nitro Shooter. No one expected it, and obviously the highlight, I think, of the race was his safety car restart with like 2 laps to go, gaining a second on Lillian almost immediately. So yeah, a very exciting prospect is Nitro Shooter, currently in P6, but very close still at the top of the grid, and very long time to go in the rest of this qualifying session.
Yeah, absolutely. Already slotted himself into P6 at the moment in this quali session. Of course, there is already a bit of a cavern opening up to newly appointed full-time racer Lillian, who is out in very, very far in front at the moment with a 129.4.
Oh, here we go. Sorry, oh. I just realised I found there is a quali ban for Kornderbacher.
Okay, good.
I missed it. Ooh.
Okay, well, at least that's cleared up, and into the pits a lot of drivers are going. I'm not sure whether that's going to be because there's inclement weather on the way. There's a couple of drivers here, like Andrew Korapi and Julian Klaffenbach, who went out and did not complete their lap. But the clouds are seemingly only getting darker overhead, so I'm not sure whether that is because of conditions or whether people have just botched their laps. As far as I was aware, I wasn't paying, admittedly, the most attention to Andrew Karapi's first attempt, but it didn't look like it was going particularly wrong. So, not particularly sure what has gone on there for the American driver for him to be coming back into the pits. I don't know whether there is rain falling on the onboards with people. I can't really see any right now. It does still look mightily overcast, and those clouds do look horrendously threatening, ominous, if you will. And it doesn't look like it's getting any brighter.
It certainly does not. I'm not seeing, as you said, no rain at the moment. Just be the first run of quali is over.
It could just be, yeah.
Yeah. I guess we'll see. I hope. I don't know. I hope we don't have rain. I feel like rain and quali is a bit less, makes it a bit less exciting. Obviously, knowing that no one else is going to improve. But yeah, I mean, it's quite a big lead that Lillian has at the moment, almost 2/10. So very well done from him. Felipe Sousa as well. I feel like 2/10 behind, and then it's fairly close from the rest of there. But yeah, no, not bad first laps. Got a few more people coming out the pits, I believe, on softs. So no immediate threat of rain, I don't think.
I don't feel so just yet. Yeah, I will note that Julian Klaffenbach came straight in and then straight out immediately, like he was in a bit of a rush. So again, this is the problem with the people who are broadcasting, i.e. us, not having really too much information about the weather. I hope that is an improvement that Codemasters and EA can make for future iterations of this title, but for the time being, it seems that we are the ones in the dark and the drivers are the ones with all the information, which I feel is the opposite to how this one really should be with regards to how weather is going to pan out. Either which way, Julian Klaffenbach now is starting a lap, which will be his first proper timed lap attempt, considering as the last one didn't go according to plan for whatever reason. So we'll see whether he can put something together. Klaffenbach has been a pretty good contender at the start of this season so far, putting in a wealth of pretty decent performances, solid attempts towards a podium in Spain, I think, before there was a little bit of carnage. I don't know whether he was caught up in all of that. My memory does not serve me well enough to remember, but Klaffenbach has always been there or thereabouts, was tidily onto the back little quartet that was in the leading quartet in Singapore. And Klaffenbach was not really having the pace to make any progress on that, but didn't also have enough of a deficit that he was falling behind. So I think with Klaffenbach this season, on target so far, definitely some room for improvement when you've got the likes of Lillian and Nitro Shooter putting in rather, well, I suppose you'd say dominant performances throughout so far. But Klaffenbach, yeah, definitely there up in the front runnings, and we'll see whether this quali lap is going to be good enough to put him up in those front 2 rows as well.
Yep, just coming through the very tricky turn 12, as I said earlier, very easy to spin there, using all of the track as possible, going completely on the high curbs. swinging it through turn 14 into the heavy braking zone of turn 15, short shifting, not short shifting, staying in fourth, going up through the gears, getting the power down. We'll see where that's good enough at the moment. P2, so a very quick lap time from Julian Klaffenbach there. Very well done to him. Another thing I want to focus on are the two Mercedes drivers not having the best of luck last weekend, only getting 5 points between the two of them after Rish and DNF. It was all down to Noel Carmen, who had quite a stunning comeback, to be fair. But those guys are still somehow leading the constructors because they had a very good first race in Spain. But yeah, those guys have a lot of defending to do. They kind of have a 5 points gap to Haas in second. But yeah, no, so they're going to be expecting a lot better luck this week.
Speaking of better luck, Lillian just attempted a second run, but clearly something went wrong with it, or it wasn't really going to be troubling too much, and decided to abort, to go straight back into the pits. Rishan, like you mentioned, will hop on board with the Merc driver this week, sporting a 5-second time penalty to be applied after the race because of a previous incident last week, which could not be applied due to him DNFing. So it's going to be applied this week instead. So we'll start with his second run, a second stab at this qualifying attempt. In the blue helmet, well, I suppose, is that really blue? I don't know what the Mercedes love colours consider themselves to be anymore. They used to be kind of like a minty green, and now in this iteration of the W13, they were blue, and now they're back to being that sort of minty green colour. So Petronas maybe not accurately represented in the F1 game. We'll see. Either way, unimportant, as Rishan here is just trying to put a tidy lap together. And I often find the lines taken... We can talk a little bit about this, actually. Comparative to real life, obviously, the F1 game is not necessarily a great representation of real life racing. A lot of the lines that are taken on the F1 game are really exacerbated and kind of stretched to the bounds of what I would consider to be really feasible or legal in real F1 racing. But I think it is a really important distinction to note, and I think it's also really exemplified no better than at France. You have lines that are wide and sweeping, where you really want to try and take the piss a bit with track limits and push yourself really, really wide. And then other times in which you'll have it up here in Sector 3 after Turn 12, where you kind of stay riding that low outside curb for the shortest possible distance. You don't want to be taking any wider lines. You can abuse the tyres in these early runs because you're not worried about tyre wear. And you can just try and find all of the grip that you can. And generally, it works out to find just those, I don't know, microseconds, you know, the thousandths, the hundredths of a second that you can use to improve. Speaking of improvement, that's what Rishan's found here, up into the 29.5s.
Yeah, a good lap from him. What you're saying is actually a really good point. I think that's to do with the game simulation, obviously, compared to real life. For example, I think Alex Gillen made a really good video about this sort of thing. So, for example, the way the surface and carcass tire temperatures are linked. So, obviously, so basically the tire temperatures work completely differently on this game in real life, and the drivers in the game can afford to take the lines that will take more out of their tires because it won't heat them up as much. But in real life, if the drivers would take those lines, they would have insane tire temperature at the end of the race and at the end of the lap, and would be sliding everywhere. So yeah, that's part of the reason to do the different lines. And then obviously you've got the different curbs, which I think is more to do with the way steering decreases the speed, I guess. Not 100% sure in all honesty. That's a guess. I believe we have Lillian starting a second flying lap now, going through the first sector.
Just as a by the way, we completely missed this. Benny Farbos has locked in an absolutely stonking lap to take over P1 at the moment, a 29.419. So Lillian has some work to do on this third run. Oh, never
Indeed.
mind. Invalidated.
Never mind. He's going to have to leave it to the last possible couple of minutes.
Yeah, this will be straight back into the pit. Actually, I forget. Do you have 4 sets of tyres in short quali? Because I think you do, but you only get a chance to use 3 realistically if you're...
Yeah, I think it's 3 softs and 1 medium if you're going to balance tyres, which I think is what most of the drivers will have done.
Oh, interesting. In that case, then Lillian will have to do a lap on some used set potentially. If it's only 3 softs, because Lillian aborted the second attempt, and obviously has screwed the pooch here on the third.
I think you're right. He's going to have to go out and use sets, and we'll see when he comes out of the pits what his tyre deg is. But yeah, that's might put him at quite a bit of a disadvantage, especially because France is one of those circuits that will take everything out of the tyres. So, yeah, definitely something to look out for in the later stage of qualifying. Pretty much everyone is in the pits now, apart from Sven Schumacher, who is on a flyer, coming through turn 14, now swinging it into the final corner, turn 15, getting the power down as quick as he can. He wants quite a bit of improvement, given the fact that he is currently 16th. We'll see what he does as he does cross the line. It's going to be quite a good improvement, actually, going up all the way into P7. Not bad at all, and nearer to his teammate as well, which is important for the constructors' battle.
Yes, yeah, absolutely would be. Sven Schumacher, really a driver I feel that has struggled with qualifying, I think it's safe to say, this season. He's shown promises, like glimpses, flash in the pan type things, of being very promising in qualifying, having good one-lap pace, and especially when he goes for that alternate strategy compared to the other drivers at the start of races. He's demonstrated time and time again so far in F4 and now in F3 this season that he has the pace to go toe-to-toe with the rest of them at the start of races, but towards the end of races, especially when on those alternate strategies, it really does start to falter for him. And a lot of the time he has to opt for those different strategies because of a poor qualifying performance, where you have to try and make up ground as easily as you can, and the best way to do that is to take the freebies that are granted to you with alternate tyre strategies. So for Sven Schumacher, if he could just nail his qualifying just that smidgen more, I feel like we could be seeing a very strong driver emerging in the latter parts of this F3 season.
Yeah, but he's definitely, I mean, you're right, he has shown those glimpses. He's got to just work on bringing those glimpses a bit more, well, showing them a bit more brightly, I suppose. But yes, we do have the drivers coming out of the pit lane at the moment to start their final laps. At the moment on pole, provisional pole, Benny Fabos, followed very closely by Lillian, about 0.04 of a second, 0.03 of a second between those two, and then a tenth behind is Julian Klaffenbach. Very closely behind, you've got Rishan, Andrew Corapi, Felipe Sousa, Sven Schumacher, Menno, Noah. Sven Schumacher actually retires from the session, not going to have time to go for another run, but it's incredibly close. If you look from about 4th all the way down to, what, 10th, maybe is covered by about a 10th. So
yeah,
it's very close. Any improvement will probably gain you a position. So
I mean, even down as far as 15th is currently only about 0.4 realistically, which is massively impressive and a testament to how tight this field can be. I mean, you see how many drivers are just in the 129.6s and the 129.5s. That enough should tell you and paint a pretty clear picture of just how close this top 10 is, and then it stretches out just that little bit further towards the top 15. Obviously, we've got Korn de Backer, who's not even participating, Ian Van Unen, who hasn't even set a lap time yet, and you've got a couple of other drivers as well, who I feel like Fionn McKee, for example, and Geltech have not really set representative lap times of where we would expect them to be, so it could be even closer on a more holistic, scaled-out viewpoint of this one. Anyway, Benny Fabos starting his final run of this French qualifying session. It appears that the weather is also getting a little bit better as well. I saw some sun poking through a little bit there. Track certainly looking a lot more illuminated, which will do better for getting the tyres up to temperature. And for Benny Fabos, that doesn't seem to be a struggle. Nailing it into the apexes of a lot of these corners that are often a bit difficult. You want to overshoot it almost a lot of the time, but it seems that this lap is not quite where he would want it to be. That is 2.5 tenths off his previous best at the end of the first sector. So Benny with a lot of work to do here in the middle and final sectors. We'll see whether there is any time to be gained. One would assume not really, because that lap time that Fabos posted in his second run is already very, very tough to contend with. Fionn McKee not going to be able to improve beyond his 130.5, so it's going to be a question here of whether Benny Fabos can haul the weight to the finish line for a decent lap time. I didn't catch the delta at the end of Sector 2 there, but here in Sector 3, this lap time doesn't look particularly troubling for anybody at the top of the field, and it's just been invalidated as well. So we'll hop on with Lillian to see how his attempt of beating Benny Fabos' lap time is looking. I think you're muted, Alex.
Thank you, sorry. About half a tenth up at the moment on his lap time, heading towards the chicane. Sorry, we asked about Lillian. I don't know. Yeah, obviously. Sorry, not with it. Lillian exiting the chicane now, about to reach the sector. No, he's already past the sector split. I completely missed that. Andre Monat has finished P3. He's not going to improve anymore. But Lillian still fighting to try and get this pole position. He's not got that many corners to go. He's hugging the curb, trying to get the power down as quickly as possible, using all the track, just like we saw Ben Fabos doing. Going through turn 14 now, swinging it into turn 15. Again, getting the power down as quickly as he can. We'll see, has he done enough to take pole position from Benny Fabos? We're going to see as he comes up to the line. Yes, he has, and he takes it pole position with a 29.3, or about a full 10th improvement there. And stage job, that's immediately beaten by Roshan with a 29.333, 3 thousandths faster than Lillian. That's a thrilling end to qualifying there. An absolutely stunning lap from both Lillian, but immediately beaten just about by Roshan. And Roshan is going to be your pole sitter for the French Grand Prix.
Wow, there were really no indications that Roshan had that pace in him all session long. Not really even troubling the top 5 with his lap times up until that final run, where Roshan has absolutely put it together. Just 3 thousandths of a second, but that's 3 thousandths of a second that's going to lead up to a few meters on grid spot. So I wouldn't be worried about the distance, I'd just be worried about the number next to my name, and it's P1 for Roshan to start off the French Grand Prix. Takes it away from hometown hero Lillian. Frenchman not going to be starting on pole for his home Grand Prix. Instead, Roshan will take that dutifully away from him. But down the rest of the field, it's Benny Fabos, who was long-term leader from that second run, got dismounted in the end down to 3rd place, and then quickly followed up. Well, I think it was Jack Humphreys who managed to put in a decent lap time towards the end as well to leapfrog from about 16th on the grid to 4th, if I caught that correctly, but everybody clicked through, so I guess it's ready to get the race started. If only the race could be as exciting as that end of qualifying, we'll soon find out. We've got a lot of time left to wait, just because there's a little bit of a loading period. So with that, we'll throw you a quick break. Alright folks, a little ad break aside, and it's time to get into the action. It's time to get into the racing. You can see the timer says 0 seconds remaining. That's the sign that we want to see as the red lights start to tick on. It's Roshan on pole, Lillian in second, 5 red lights, and we are off to the races. Immediately, AWS wants to give you a predicted tyre strategy, but we're not interested in that at all. It's a stellar start from Roshan. Benny Fabos also looking to try and get tasty up the inside of turn 1 as well. Is it going to be carnage? Are they all going to get through safely? Already a McLaren off track. That's Felipe Sousa, who's been muscled wide. Benny Fabos also relegated back off that turn 1 as well. It was given over to Lillian in the end, and now Andre Molner also making some stellar progress up the field. Managed to already leapfrog Jack Humphreys to lodge himself into 4th place, so the Alfa Romeo is having a great time. Meanwhile, less than a great time for Miltos Karafalidis, as he's dropped down to the back of the grid. An incident maybe in the earlier portions of the first sector, but for now we're off, and Roshan is trying to make a break for it at the front. Already 5/10 of a lead.
Yep, a great start for Roshan there, exactly what we wanted. Got off very cleanly and had Lillian and Benny fighting right behind him. Although it has closed up a little bit more now, but it's roughly staying at that 5/10 gap. So yeah, really good start from him. Benny Fabos in P3, about 4/10 behind Lillian. Yeah, very close behind Benny is the other Alfa Romeo of Andre Molnar, as he does go for a very late dive there. Andre Molnar gonna try and get the power down. He'll see if he can send it around turn 12. He's not gonna be able to do it. He's gonna have to. Sorry, Benny goes wide, and Andre Molnar actually gets a switchback, but he's still not able to do anything with it. Really, I don't know, potentially if he's struggling with traction, but he can't get the traction down as much as Benny. Benny really able to be on top of that defending there. So great defending from Benny there. That's all going to help Lillian and Roshan, because that's going to create more and more of a gap between them. But Andre Molnar looking very feisty, very hungry for that P3 position.
Yeah, Andre Molnar already making moves. Up 1 grid slot already, of course, taken out on Jack Humphreys. Now looking to try and make that grid spot into a second with Benny Fabos. He's looking menacing. Certainly circling and applying the pressure in the rear-view mirror of Benny Fabos, and that's never the one thing you want to be seeing. The Hungarian going to be driving in his mirrors, making sure that Alfa Romeo is not going to be trying to muscle its way by at a corner where it doesn't belong. Anyway, down the front, or back straight, I suppose you would say, for the second time. This will be, in the race, your primary overtaking opportunity. Of course, with the long radius corners, you have an opportunity to break deep and cut back, as we saw Alonso do just this weekend gone at Bahrain. But that will be your primary manoeuvre right there, into the chicane at the end of that very, very long DRS straight. That's where you're going to be seeing your outbraking, that's where you're going to be seeing your deployment, that's where you're going to be seeing your overtakes on the most part. So keep your eyes peeled when we come to that part of the track in future. For now though, Andre Molnar not interested in making a move this time, despite the fact that he's running out of time before DRS is activated and he might get locked into a train.
Yeah, he's got to be making the move as soon as possible. Rishan going a little bit wide there, just in the front, allowed Lillian to get very close. Benny Fabos as well, dropping a little bit further behind. Obviously, he's under pressure from Andre as well. Just important to note, because I already forgot it, but I've just remembered it again. Rishan, again, does have the 5-second time penalty, and he's not able to drop Lillian out of the DRS just yet, so he needs to hope there's something later on. Otherwise, Lillian can just sit within 5 seconds of Rishan and will almost be dragged away to victory. So Rishan does really need to be having that in the back of his mind, for sure.
Just a quick note as well, we saw there the fastest lap comes through for Bartosz Samaro, the only driver on track at the moment to be on the medium tyres. All other 19 drivers are on those hard compound tyres. Bartosz Samaro up 5 places from where he started because of those medium tyres and still making progress, setting purple sectors and purple laps. So keep your eye on the Haas driver to see what progress he can make or what carnage he can cause in this early stint.
Yep, just watching Bartosz Samaro get past Noel Carmen there. Very clean move. That's all fine and dandy, I was just saying. Up ahead, we do have Jack Humphreys trying to go down the inside of Andre Molnar. Got the power down, got the ERS on, and that is P4 for Jack Humphreys. Back to where he started this race. Up ahead, Lillian still putting on the pressure of Rishan. Benny potentially struggling for pace a little bit. He does seem to be struggling to stay, or at least as close to Lillian as Lillian is to Rishan. The gap being about 7 tenths between second and third there. And Lillian also looking like he wants to put pressure on the current leader, Rishan. We'll see if he actually chooses to go for a move or not, or whether he's strategically going to stay behind. Obviously, until the last lap, if you're staying behind, that gives you the advantage to be in the striking position to make that move. Also something to note is the tyres that people are on. People's trying different strategies. So Bartosz Samaro there, probably the reason why he got such a good start and has made up 6 positions is the fact that he's on the medium tyres, which will be quite a bit faster on a track. Dated tyres, but obviously won't be as fast for very long. But yeah, watch out at the front. Lillian looking very feisty, looking like he really wants to get past Rishan. We'll see what he does in the next few laps.
You mentioned also that Benny Fabos looked like he might be struggling for grip. Well, to be honest, he looks like he's struggling to even buy an apex at this point. That final sector on that previous lap was an absolute nightmare. Lillian's going for a move with the DRS open at the front of the field as well. Rishan has not been able to offer up a defense, but is looking to try and get his nose in somewhere where it might not belong. Let's take a quick look at the ERS usage from both drivers. Rishan has barely used any battery so far this race, and it might be looking here that he's going to go for a move into the long radius and deep braking zone. Coming up ahead, no, bails out of it. Doesn't want to make any moves that are unnecessarily dangerous at this point in the race, because you can't win it on lap 4, but you can sure as hell lose it right here. So Rishan keeps his powder dry for just a moment, and now Lillian will have his turn at the front of the field. Let's see what pace Lillian is able to dictate in that Alfa Romeo.
Yep, Lillian having his turn in the spotlight, and we'll see if Benny Fabos, because he does seem a little bit closer to Rishan than he was to Lillian, we'll see if he's able to do anything to Rishan either. But remember, Rishan and Lillian being very close in qualifying, we know they're both very quick drivers. I do expect Lillian will not really be able to pull away just due to the fact of how powerful DRS is. So I expect we will see a train start to form. But Rishan is going to be under pressure from Benny from Jack, and Jack from Andre as we go on. I mean, you have the same thing all the way down the grid. No one is out of the DRS. Oh, is
Klaffenbach having a bit of a lag moment here? It looks to me like Klaffenbach's having a few connection moments, because he went wide and then teleported back onto the racing line, which gave Zamaro the place, but then there was a bit of wheel banging or no clipping or something. Either way, it's penalised Klaffenbach for whatever that incident was. So we'll have to see whether that gets reviewed later on. Klaffenbach is wide again and then teleporting back out. Is there an issue for Klaffenbach or something? I'm not sure, but he's back up in 7th place now. Yeah, he's lagging, definitely lagging. Either way, front of the field, back again. Benny Farbos has been mugged. This time, Jack Humphreys back on a charge. But Benny Farbos is not letting this one go lightly. Already trying to push the McLaren through the final sector here before having to finally concede a little bit of ground. Very, very wide entry to Farbos on that turn 12 corner as well, but nothing really coming of it as he doesn't really able to manage to catch the apex yet again. So this is looking like a bit of an odd line taking from Farbos, and it's already leaving him vulnerable to Molnar behind. If you look at this, Molnar is currently, what, was 1/10 of a second just behind Benny Farbos there. Maybe, just maybe, Zamaro and Molnar are looking a little bit more tasty for some progress. Anyway, back up the front, Roshan has not really put the moves on Lillian anywhere close to how quickly Lillian did to Roshan, so we'll see whether there is a rebuttal or whether there is a comeback. Like you mentioned, Alex, DRS is so powerful around this track, especially down that back straight. You'd expect to see there to be quite a lot of progress with catching back up and maybe overtaking, but better still, much harder for Lillian to drop Roshan with the potency of this DRS.
Yep, not really. I mean, seeing Roshan's pace, I'm not really sure how much he can do at the moment. Obviously, it's a long race. We've still got a long time to go, and we'll definitely, I'm sure, see some moves later on in the race. Behind Roshan, Jack Humphreys about 8/10 away.
Oh, wait, Benny Farbos has gone wide. Benny Farbos has gone wide after the chicane. I'm not sure what happened, but either way, it's allowed Andre Molnar to come on through, and now it's also making Bartos Zamaro feel mightily invited to try and hang it around the outside, and then he's going to switch back to the inside. What a move from Zamaro, making use of those grippier medium tyres, and he's just absolutely pulled the wool over Benny Farbos' eyes. It goes from bad to worse for Farbos, who started P3 on the grid, and in just 6 laps... Oh no, that's Klaffenbach's lag has just ribbed Farbos out of the race. Oh,
I'm not sure what happened there, actually, because Klaffenbach looked like he was going for a move, and it's almost as if Farbos didn't see him, so potentially desynced.
I was on board with Farbos at the time, so I didn't get a chance to see what happened in the rear view.
I was on board with Klaffenbach. He was behind, he was faster, he pulled out, and then, I don't know, I guess Farbos turned in, maybe not seeing him, just a lag, or I'm not sure, but that is incredibly frustrating for any Farbos.
That is heart-wrenching.
I just want to talk about Bartos Zamaro there. So obviously he is on mediums. He's wanting to make the most out of them whilst he has them. He's used all of his battery, but interestingly, so has Andre Molnar. And to be fair, Jack Humphreys is only on 30%. So a lot of the drivers really ERS dumping, which surprises me because I don't think it's too important what position you're in at the moment, as long as you're in the lead train. So yeah, apart from Bartos, who you'd expect because obviously he wants to make the most out of his tyres, it does surprise me that a couple of other drivers using all of their battery.
Yeah, it definitely is interesting, the ERS usage situation of a lot of different drivers and how they tend to, or at least prefer to, attack the early portions of Grand Prix. What I think we're about to see here, though, is going to be a little bit of a breakaway because obviously, like you mentioned, Molnar, being that aggressive battery usage that we've seen already, has left him really now vulnerable to A, behind, and B, not really being able to reel back in those drivers in front who have more battery and DRS on one another. So Molnar is just going to continue, I feel, to lose time to the drivers ahead of him. So this is going to be a bit of a bridging point here for Bartos Zamaro. If he has any life left in those medium tyres, he's going to have to use them pretty aggressively to try and bridge this already now nearly 2-second gap to the leading trio.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of hindered Bartos quite a bit, which is well, not unfortunate, but I mean, to be fair, because, sorry, losing all my words said, Bartos has already had quite a good comeback, considering where he started, making up already 8 positions, so I'm sure he'll be happy even with a P5, but yeah, that is going to hinder really any progress that he's going to be able to make in the rest of the stint. His tyres are just not going to be with it enough. Obviously, we still have safety cars and stuff, so we'll see what he does. And he does look like he's going to be going for a move down the inside of Andre Molnar now. Under braking, he's going to try and do it in the chicane. He's got the tyre advantage. Andre, though, not wanting to leave any space. Bartos having to go off the track and has made the move, but that might be an illegal overtake. It does, and it does look like he's having to concede position.
What is going on?
Just so he doesn't get a time penalty. And that has brought Noel Carman into P4. Julian Klaffenbach into P5. Julian Klaffenbach trying to go for a move. Not able to do anything. But that was very unfortunate for Bartosz Samaro there.
Well,
robbed the P4 position.
I'm not sure how unfortunate it's been because he's immediately got Molnar back on the inside. Now he's got Klaffenbach to overtake. If there was ever a man on track at the moment that I did not want to have to overtake, it would be Klaffenbach, because you can see, or at least you could see previously, just how much he was suffering with latency. And now I'm on these medium tyres that are surely not going to be as healthy as they once were. And I've got Andre Molnar looking angry in my rearview mirror, desperately trying to find a way through. Not happy with the outcome of the previous overtake attempt that I made at the end of the DRS straight. Currently, if I'm Bartosz Samaro, I am sweating bullets with the amount of drivers that are angrily looking at me from all around here on these mediums. And I am also anxious to make some progress on these better tyres as well. So it is a bit of a catch-22 here for Samaro. Got to make some moves, but got to make them cleanly.
Yep. I'm a bit, I don't know what to think. I feel like Bartosz has sort of shot himself in the foot here. But then again, it wasn't really his fault either. But yeah, as you said, Andre looking very feisty behind him. I think he feels a bit hung out to dry there by Bartosz when he made that move. Although, I don't know, maybe it'll be reviewed afterwards. I don't really have an opinion on it, but we do see Andre Molnar with a good run. He's using all his battery, so he does look like he wants to potentially go for a move into the sweeping right-hander of turn 11. He brakes early, going to try and go for the switchback into the braking zone, which he does. And that's going to, but Bartosz is going to have more speed on the outside line, and he's going to keep position. And that's now
surely that was off track.
Molnar. I'm not sure. It's difficult to keep up with. But Andre Molnar is now under pressure from Andrew Karapi, or at least he was, not really anymore. But Andre not able to overtake Bartosz just yet.
Andrew Karapi did have a big old look up the inside of the final corner there. That might have been a bit audacious from the American. Andre Molnar not really having any of it, just didn't give him the enough racing room there. But now that's left Nitro Shooter looking like he doesn't need a second invitation on Andrew Karapi. It's like dominoes, isn't it? As soon as one starts fighting, they all start kicking off. It's Bartosz Samaro and Andre Molnar who've lost ground now to Noel Carman and Julian Klaffenbach up front. So they're going to need to maybe think about putting this feud to bed for a few laps and just trying to catch back up, because otherwise they're going to ruin both of their own races. And considering as neither of them have any ERS at the moment, they might want to think about how they're going to go and attack this situation moving forward. I think, speaking of attack though, Andre Molnar is not interested in working cooperatively. He pulls to the inside once again down the back straight. He's left his wheel in there. It's very, very tight, but it's also very, very clean. Andre Molnar backs out of it appropriately, but now these two are nearly outside, in fact are outside of that 1 second margin. So Andre Molnar again shooting he and his fellow I suppose podium contender, if anything goes south, in the foot, and now squabbling for position once again as he goes up the inside. Same as before, Zamaro's going to try and hang it around the outside again, gets the inside line for the next corner, outbrakes himself slightly, and it's almost as if Molnar doesn't need a second invitation, but the door is slammed in his face. Zamaro holds on to P6 for another lap, but Molnar is not letting this one go lightly.
As Bartosz does pull into the pits, those mediums have absolutely had it from all that fighting. And that's probably just hindered him so much compared to the leaders. So there's no chance of an undercut or anything to those guys. But yeah, what a battle there. Some great fun to watch. But we'll see as he pulls into the pits. Now obviously he's going to be on the hard tyres, and we'll see where he comes out in a few laps time compared to the other drivers. Andre Molnar is actually out of the DRS of Julian Klaffenbach, or it's very close. We'll see if he's able to get back in, but honestly I can't see that happening. No, he's not going to be there. He's not going to have enough speed to be within the DRS again for this lap. So now that's put Andre Molnar under a bit of pressure from Andrew Karapi, who will be catching up very quickly. As we see in front, Julian Klaffenbach did look like he was going to go for a move on Noel Carman, but pulled out from it just before the braking zone. But yeah, very entertaining fighting there.
Yeah, definitely. And Andre Molnar now he's not stuck behind the degraded medium tyres of Bartosz Samaro, is trying his damnedest to make inroads into that DRS window. He was just beneath 9/10 of a second before we got into this complex here, but as unfortunately had that advantage eked back away from him. One thing to also remember here, just to keep an update on the live penalty situation for Klaffenbach, is I'm not sure whether that 3-second penalty will be standing, but also there's likely going to be a pending incident review with Benny Fabos for whatever happened where they got shunting each other off of the track. So let's not hold out for a Klaffenbach podium just yet. But meanwhile, at the front, pace is well and truly being set. To me, it looks like Lilian is using that battery and is getting away. Beautiful lap there to now extend the lead over the Mercedes of Rishan to 1.3 seconds. Might have had the better of him in qualifying, but Lilian certainly has the measure of Rishan here on race pace. Are you muted again, Alex?
How have I done that? I have a mute hotkey and I've not pressed it once. I'm very sorry about that. Rishan, yeah, under pressure from Jack Humphries, which is not what he needs right now, considering the fact that he also has a 5-second time penalty. I'm just keeping that at the back of my mind constantly because I'm just trying to see how far that puts him down the order. At the moment, I'm not even going to work that out. It's quite a bit. But yeah, Rishan definitely under a lot more pressure now. So we'll see if Jack chooses to go for any moves or anything. But that does give Lilian an advantage to really start to pull away now and really use those tyres if he hasn't done already. But yeah, so Jack Humphries potentially looking at P2 now. So yeah, good for him.
Yeah, Jack Humphries has kind of kept his powder dry for the most part in this race. Didn't really get involved in any of that squabbling going on behind him. Managed to leapfrog Benny Fabos and Andre Molnar. And as such, kind of got himself into a strong position where he didn't need to do too much early on and burn himself out and burn his tyres out. And is now in that very lucrative position of just being able to sit in for DRS. We have a number of drivers who are, well, just actually one, I think. That's Felipe Sousa, who is heading in for the pit stop off of the hard tyres onto the mediums, I think. This seems a little premature to me. Maybe a lap or two more and it might be feasible. But for the time being, I feel like you're going to end up doing more of the race on the mediums than you are of the hards here. We're not quite at that halfway mark yet. So as such, for Felipe Sousa, don't think the mediums will stretch quite that far on strong pace. We'll see, though. He surely knows better than I do, so I won't be the one to try and pass too much judgment there. Anyway, back at the front, Rishan and Jack Humphries. What is there to be offered here? Jack looks pretty comfortable just sitting where he is for now. Doesn't really want to make any moves. Speaking of, though, further back, it seems that Julian Klaffenbach has put the moves on Noel Carman. It's been coming for a few laps, and now with that 3-second window opened up, nearly 4-second window, that DRS that Carman did once have is no longer there. And Julian Klaffenbach has made full advantage of that and mugged him right where he stood at the end of the straight.
Yep, I was just on the onboard actually then. Just a pretty simple, clean pass. No really real squabbling between Klaffenbach and Carman. Yeah, I mean, at the moment, it's not really too much happening other than the overtake we just saw. Jack Humphries, though, is going to start at least the front guys, pit stops. So, yeah, he's coming in now. We'll see if Rishan,
we're going to
Lilian...
wave.
We do. We got Andrew Karapi, Andre Molnar, Menu, Sven, Schumacher, all coming into the pits. Difficult to see who. I'm seeing a little bit of jumping. Jack Humphries has actually just been jumped by Andre Molnar. Oh, no, he hasn't. Sorry, Andre hadn't pitted yet. My bad.
That would have been a mighty leap if Andre Molnar managed to get in ahead of Jack Humphries. Either way, I think if I'm not mistaken, I did also see that Molnar had managed to pick up a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. I know that France has a bit of a finicky pit entry and can be a little bit, what would be the word? Kind of fickle at times with how it applies the penalty, so we'll see whether that one gets reviewed after the race. But for now, let's treat it as if he does have it, because Molnar now 5 seconds added to his time at the end of the race is certainly going to hinder his chances. And speaking of chances being hindered, Bartosz Samaro, who was previously involved in a squabble with the man who's just come out 7/10 behind him, are once again not going to be separated by anything. Now it's a role reversal. It is fresh medium tyres for Molnar. It is worn slightly hard tyres for Zamaro. We'll see where this ends up slotting these guys out. But for the time being, I'm sure there are about to be some fireworks here as we go into the third sector between these two.
Yep, these guys definitely like battling each other. I'm a bit confused why Bartos has got used tyres on. I
Use
don't know
tires.
why. I'm such an idiot. No, sorry, I forgot he pitted 3 laps ago. He was not in that wave. Sorry, I'm not with it today, apparently. But yeah, Andre Molnar looking very feisty, looking very quick, obviously, with the quicker tyres. On Bartos tomorrow, Bartos is going to hope that somehow he has undercut some of the drivers in front enough to the extent where he's now in their DRS. Because otherwise he's going to be very immediately actually under pressure from Andre Molnar. Andre Molnar using his battery, using the DRS, and it's going to be a drag race to the line. None of them have any battery, and I'm losing them there.
Oh no!
Oh my god, Andre
Oh
Molnar.
god!
A lot happened there. Andre Molnar overtaking Bartos tomorrow, and both of them nearly hitting Nitro Shooter. The other has Nitro coming out of the pits. He's also under pressure from Menno. Menno trying to go down the inside. As Nitro Shooter actually had a fairly quiet race, but he's now going to lose another position to Menno. So unfortunate for Nitro coming out the pits, just not able to really switch on fast enough. And I'm just trying to figure out the provisional order now. Lillian also pit with both Mercedes at the front staying out. Those guys now leading this Grand Prix. Also Andre Lopez, Fionn McKee yet to pit in 3rd and 4th. Jack Humphries 1.8 away from Lillian, pretty much what the gap was before, so yeah, not too much changing at the front there. Just trying to see what else is happening, not really too much, just the train coming out of the pits now, led by Julian Klaffenbach from that group that we had before. No, actually not really a train. Andre Molnar is 2 seconds
no,
behind.
there's carnage, that's Nitro, sorry, I think that's Bartos Samaro and Menno Nielsen who've just ended up coming to blows in the final sector. I'm not quite sure what happened and if there is damage for either of them, but they were both bumping and pushing one another off track. Looks like Menno Nielsen and Bartos Samaro both diving into the pit lane. Bartos just yeeted himself nearly into the back of Menno Nielsen trying to enter the pit lane there. I'm not sure what the hell happened there. I'd have to take a look back at that one, but it didn't look particularly friendly or clean. Well, either way, that ruins both of their races as they now both dive back into the pit lane, inevitably just for fresh tyres. No wing change on either of them? I have no idea what just happened.
It's very easy. Maybe they didn't have the setting on because, you know, auto wing change. That might have been a problem if they both have damage. Rishan has pulled into the pits now and he's come out 2 seconds behind Jack Humphries and he's on cold tyres as well.
And he's back in Klaffenbach as well. How has this happened?
No idea. I mean, his tyres are cold, but that's about it. Yeah, Rishan. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Maybe the overcut just did not work. Tyres were just too worn to really have any effect on the pace. But he does have 2 laps fresher than Jack now. So we'll see. Sorry. We'll see towards the end of this race if he's able to do anything with that tyre advantage. Yeah, unfortunately between Menno and Bartos Samaro, both of those guys, as you said, race ruined, a whole pit stop behind. They're just going to have to pray for a safety car at this rate. So, yeah, unfortunate for those guys. Noel Carmen in the lead in the pits now, as is Andre Lopez. Those guys not really in the front battle, but definitely fighting for 4th, 5th, those slightly lower positions. Noel Carmen is coming out of the pits now. He's been gapped by almost everyone. He will continue to be gapped by almost everyone. I think, oh my goodness, did he just have some oversteer on the pit exit? And he might have hit his front wing. I hope not. That would be very horrible if he did. But yeah, coming out behind Nitro Shooter, so in the same sort of train that he was before.
Yeah, not a great strategy, I feel, here for the Mercedes drivers. They've kind of hung themselves out to dry a little bit, left themselves out a bit too long, and now I think given themselves a bit too much work to do. If the tyres don't go off as fast as they would hope for the drivers in front of them, I'm worried about how much they're going to be able to recuperate. Especially now considering as that Rashan has also used almost all of his battery to get to the point that he's at, just only now 1.2 seconds behind Jack Humphries, who in himself has about 10% more battery remaining, and Lillian has about the same. I think the gap to Lillian now is pretty much insurmountable. Lillian has done a splendid job here at home to get himself up into P1 and to basically dominate this race from the second that he passed Rashan. So this is a weird moment here for Rashan to salvage something from what promised to be a really good race. He's lost out massively, not only to Lillian, but of course to Jack Humphries now as well over the pit stop.
Yep, he is looking very quick now, though. Not too far away from Jack Humphreys. Um, not quite in the DRS yet, but I'm sure he's not going to be out of the DRS for too long. Yeah, Lillian pretty much walking away with the victory here. He's got about 3.5 seconds on Jack Humphreys. And it's home Grand Prix as well. Let's probably note that. The French driver getting a potential victory in France, so fair play to him. Rishan on the cusp of the DRS now with Jack Humphreys pretty much exactly on the line. We'll see. I think he's just got that little bit more confidence on his tyres. We'll see if it's actually enough, though. You know what? He might have fallen out again, and I don't think he's going to have it just quite this lap. If so, it's very close. That was literally thousandths the difference, so unfortunate for him, of course. That's also going to put pressure on him from Julian Klaffenbach, but I don't think Julian Klaffenbach is going to try anything. No, not at the moment. So, Rishan, with a little bit more work to do for the rest of this lap to try and get into the DRS of Jack Humphreys again.
I think a little bit more work to do for the rest of this race as well. It's going to be very difficult. If he catches that DRS at the right time, then he'll be just fine. But the lack of ERS comparative to Jack, and I'd argue even to Julian behind, I mean, it's only marginal, maybe about 10% the difference, but that 10% can make a lot of a difference when trying to close down a gap. And whilst Rishan has, I think, 2 lap better tyres, if memory serves, over Jack, I don't know if it's always going to be enough. Sometimes you need that little edge that ERS can give you, but it seems that now Rishan, and of course by proxy Julian Klaffenbach, have had a good enough final sector here to get themselves comfortably back into that DRS window of the McLaren out front, and now they're going to be fighting for the podium positions. Collectively, together, it's not decided just yet. Of course, Klaffenbach currently harbouring an 8-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane and also for a track limits violation when he was lagging. I think Rishan was still harbouring that 5-second penalty carried over from last race, which at the moment, if Rishan and the flag is put out now, I think it would be tight as to whether he would still remain on the podium.
Rishan just got a snap of oversteer. Oh, as Mena retires in the pits. Yeah, Rishan took a snap of oversteer. That looked very scary. Almost like a DNF, but luckily it wasn't. Sorry, a spinless, but luckily it wasn't. He is going to still sit behind Jack Humphreys, and I'm sure he'll sit there until about lap 26, where he'll go for the move. But yeah, Julian Klaffenbach with about a 5-second gap. Andre Monod. We do have a bit of fighting between Nitro Shooter. As Nitro Shooter, I didn't see exactly what happened, but he's off the track, and he's now lost a position to Noel Carman. No idea what happened there, but I mean, yeah, fair play. Andrew Karapi trying to go down the inside of Andre Monod now into turn 11. That is this long sweeping right-hander, and it's a simple move. He's made it simple. He's got it done, and Noel Carman as well, also trying to replicate that as he goes down the inside of Andre Monod. That was a very clean move by Noel Carman there. Very late dive, but comfortably secured the position. So yeah, good move from Noel Carman there, and Andre Monod losing 2 positions in the same lap. A bit unfortunate for him.
Tried to get the better run on Noel Carman by trying to square the corner off a little bit, but Noel Carman placed the car brilliantly and just didn't allow anything more to come of it. Anyway, that's our second retirement of the race as well from Benny Farbos. A disappointing end to what promised to be a good race for Farbos. Just didn't really materialise, unfortunately, for him. And the Hungarian, I'm imagining, will not be too happy with the way that race result has panned out for him. Meanwhile, for Andrew Karapi, this is a great result for the American. Didn't really put together many of the great performances that I'd come to expect from a driver like Karapi in Formula 4 last season. But in this season, here in F3, I don't think he was able to attend the first race in Spain, if I'm not mistaken. But here in France, he's putting on a show in this Alpine and really doing a bang-up job of just showcasing some of the talent that is not European in this series. It's really good to see Karapi having a strong race here.
Yeah, it is, considering so far, I mean, as you said, didn't start Spain and DNF'd in Singapore. Yeah, no, not doing too badly at all for his, well, potentially first race finish. Andre Monod and Nitro Shooter having a little battle there. Nitro Shooter trying to send it around the outside of turn 12. Difficult to get on the power there, and so he's not really able to secure the position just yet. But yeah, Nitro Shooter looking very feisty on the back of Andre Monod there, and it's quite interesting. None of them really have any ERS apart from Andrew Karapi leading the train.
And I think that's the one driver who's going to need the ERS if he wants to try and keep these folk behind him for the time being. This is all going to get very, very spicy in the laps to come as well, because there's about, oh my goodness, how many drivers? All the way down to P12 in this train. And I'm going to imagine that a couple of these guys are going to get more than aggressive to try and make up some places to land in the points, especially the likes of Sven Schumacher, Korn de Backer, Andre Lopez. They definitely have a horse in that race. So I'd be looking at those guys in the laps to come. But in the interim period, it's definitely got to be Andre Molnar is your man to watch. He's been causing all manner of destruction everywhere that he's gone this race. Whether that's been with Bartos Samaro, whether that's been with Noel Carmen or Julian Klaffenbach or whomever else. There's now Nitro Shooter who's going to try and get himself involved in the action, but takes a little bit too much curb on the entrance of the chicane and now solidifies himself with a 3-second time penalty of his own.
Yep, unfortunate there. Just trying to spot out for any battles in the rest.
Yeah, I think Sven Schumacher just got overtaken by Andre Lopez, but it doesn't seem that there's any immediate rebuttal on the cards from Schumacher at the moment.
Yep, just settling for P12 at the moment. Yeah, no, pretty average race from everyone so far, to be honest, apart from obviously those few unlucky drivers. Although Korn de Backer, I think we should probably mention, went from last because the qualifying band is currently sitting in P10, and that's not provisionally. That is actually fighting for position P10. So good job from him. We have about 5 laps left. So it is really a sprint to the end as Phil McKee retires in the pits. But yeah, Korn de Backer, bit of an underrated drive so far. I haven't really talked about him. So yeah, well done from him. Back at the front, well, in second and third. Roshan is still sitting comfortably behind Jack Humphreys, and Julian Klaffenbach sitting comfortably behind Roshan. And Julian Klaffenbach actually looking like he's going to make a move here. He's got the traction, he's got the DRS on, he's got the ERS on, and he's looking like he's going to make a move on Roshan. Is he going to try and make a move on Jack Humphreys as well? Yes, he is, and he's just secured 2 positions in the same straight. A great move, a great exit, a great run there for Julian Klaffenbach. Jack Humphreys now losing out. Was put on a more defensive line in the chicane. Has now lost out to Roshan, as Roshan now into staying in P3, but second and fourth. Julian Klaffenbach and Jack Humphrey to swap places. So
yeah, this is crazy driving there from Klaffenbach to have the gall to go for both of them in the same straight. But I will just point out that it is very likely that Jack Humphreys, despite being 4th on track right now, will still remain in P2 in the race result. Of course, Roshan still with that 5-second penalty, Klaffenbach with 8 seconds of penalties currently applied, and maybe more to come for his incident with Fabos earlier on in the race. This is a strong position for Humphreys to be in, whichever way you slice it. He has the opportunity to get the position on track, but he also has the security of penalties that are already known going into this race in the shape of Roshan, and penalties that he knows in the race from Klaffenbach. So I'd say that he's still pretty comfortable with where he is, and maybe doesn't want to take any unnecessary risks.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's no reason to risk spinning out or DNFing or anything like that. So he is pretty comfortable where he is, in all honesty. I mean, he's got about 4 seconds to Noel Carmen, and obviously Noel Carmen not being in a DRS train himself doesn't really pose too much of a threat to Jack at the moment, at least. Yeah, just behind now you've got Andrew Karapi and Andre Molnar. Molnar looking to be under pressure from Nitro Shooter, who makes a move past Andre Molnar on the straight. Very clean and simple move there, but good nonetheless, especially because they're both in the DRS train. Also to note, Andre having a 5-second time penalty, not really wanting to fight too much because he doesn't want to lose any time to the guys behind, because I think currently his 5-second time penalty does put him about 15th. So yeah, he doesn't want to lose any more time if he can manage that.
Yeah, that time penalty will take him cleanly out of the points, and the same potentially for Nitro Shooter with that 3-second time penalty for track limits. So these guys are more than anything just fighting to try and make progress, I suppose. I don't think Andre Molnar, judging by his performance in this race so far, is the type of guy to just say, yeah, I don't want to lose any more time, I'm going to fight people. I think he's definitely the I'm going to fight people type of guy. Already shown that so far. Continuing to show it here, not really giving up. The fight that's back now that he was losing out, almost hand over fist on the previous lap to Karapi and Carmen ahead, likely because of the lack of ERS that he was really having at his disposal. Now it's Nitro Shooter's turn to see whether he has anything more left in the locker to try and chase down Coleman and Karapi ahead of him. I mean, he's going to have DRS for this moment, but again, that won't really help him reel in Karapi. It might help him get a little bit closer to Coleman, though, if these two come to blows.
Sorry, I was sneezing. Yes, you're exactly right. I'm just looking up ahead, and Julian Klaffenbach has pulled about half a second to Rishon, and just remember, Rishon has still a DRS, not really, well, he's not really as close as I think you'd expect, which is quite interesting actually. Although I think I'm just being, I think I'm just exaggerating the situation here, since Jack Humphries has pretty much the exact same gap. It just looks a lot bigger when you're on the onboards because I guess of how fast the drivers are going. Yeah, so with about 3 laps to go, pressure is really on for Jack Humphries because he needs to be, well, not really because of the penalties, but for at least those in his position, like, I don't know, Felipe Sousa, for example, he's going to have to try and make a move this lap if he wants to. Oh no, they all got penalties. So I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, no, sorry. Jack Humphries is looking very calm in P4. He doesn't actually have to make any moves due to the post-race penalties. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
All good and good. Yeah, so we'll take a quick diversion back down to the pursuing group. Karapi and Coleman have been kind of putting a little bit of daylight between themselves, and then also a little bit of daylight between themselves and the rest of the train behind. It seems that things are starting to spread out a little bit now, as I think tyres and grip and ERS, all of which are starting to become a bit of a factor. Quick shout out, by the way, to Noel Carmen once again. I think he's up to 1 place from where he started. Previously started in 6th. But another consistent and pretty strong sterling race result, really. I think Coleman is going to be in a much better position than a lot of the drivers around him because he went onto those medium tyres, as you can see on your screen at the moment, just a few laps later. I mean, even later than Roshan, one of the last drivers to head onto those medium compound tyres, along
Might be worth
with
watching Roshan now as well. Sorry to interrupt. Humphries looking like he really wants to get past Rishon, so they were side by side. That's why I interrupted.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, no, Jack Humphries now behind once again.
I think maybe you might want to get by if you feel like you are being held up a little bit, because it looks to me, in the last few laps, Mr. Klaffenbach has had a tad bit more pace out the front. He's clawed back Lillian by about 0.8 of a second since the overtake was made. The gap was already up to 5 seconds and beyond when Lillian managed to clear off away from Roshan. But Klaffenbach here is, I guess Lillian's just lapping, chilling out really, and Klaffenbach is really pushing, so the pace is being made. Andre Molnaire has just lost 2 places in 1 corner, and is about to lose a 3rd, as now Andre Lopez cruises by Andre Molnar, as that leaves him now 3 places redundant in just as many corners. Felipe Sousa obviously made a little bit of an aggressive one that pushed a little bit offline or something like that. Something that basically just dislodged the rhythm of Andre Molnar, and now, of course, has dislodged them from that leading group. So now Sousa is going to come under threat shortly, I'd imagine, from Korn de Bakker, and the other trailing Red Bull. Into the braking zone they go, and de Bakker backs out of the move, at least this time around. I think seeing that his best opportunity for points today will be coming at the end of that straight on the next lap.
Yep, honestly, I can't see Molnar really scoring points. I don't know what happened. He just kind of seemed to have no pace. Korn de Bakker, though, absolute insane drive, starting last into 9th at the moment. Yeah, we'll see what he can do. He's got 1 lap after this one to try and do something with his pace, and he certainly deserves 1 extra point. Obviously, P8 he'd get 3 points rather than 2 points, as Andre Molnar.
I think he's just giving it up.
That really confused me. I was watching the timing screen. Korn de Bakker, though, he's gonna probably not go for the move yet. The best place to do it will be in the middle sector there. Lillian has started the final lap of this Grand Prix. Korn de Bakker, though, I'm going to be watching all on the back of Felipe Sousa. We'll see what he can do. Also, might be worth watching Andrew Karapi as he attempts to take P5 from Noel Carmen. Will just go along with him as he goes onto the straight. We'll see if he's close enough. He's not really going to have the battery or the how close he is. He's not going to be close enough to make a move. So I mean, I can't really see any other places, but we'll look behind Felipe Sousa. He's actually going to get overtaken by Andre Lopez, as I think he also lost out to Cordobaca as well. So both Red Bulls getting into P8 and 9 there. Felipe Sousa potentially feeling a little bit hung out to dry there on the straight, a little bit like a sitting duck there, as he couldn't do anything about it. The straight line speed, the ERS that the Red Bulls had was just simply too much. Jack Humphreys still in P4. He's happy with it. He knows that the guys ahead of penalties will cut ahead now to Lilian, as Lilian is going to be coming across the final corner, starting the final straight now. Lilian dominated today. Great drive, and Lilian wins in France. Absolutely amazing. Followed by Julian Klaffenbach with penalties. He's going to drop back. So Rishan also has penalties. So he's going to drop back. So Jack Humphreys will get P2. And Noel Carmen P3. And that is your top 3 for the French Grand Prix.
Judging by gaps as well, if that 5-second penalty for Rishan is to be applied, then I think that leaves him in P5. And it promotes Noel Carmen onto the podium. So whichever way you slice it, it's a podium for Mercedes, just maybe not the Mercedes that they were thinking it would be at the start of the day. As all things pan out as they should, it is going to be Lilian with another exceptional victory. A dominant victory from the second that he passed Rishan at the front of the field, and I think lap 6, if I'm not mistaken. Rishan never really had any response for the Alfa Romeo driver and makes it 2 from 3. It is a almost perfect winning record for him so far in Formula 3 this season. It is first, second, first, and we'll see if that form can continue into the next week. We're just waiting on Bartos Samaro in the Haas across the line, who I believe pitted for soft tyres at the beginning of lap 26. So we'll see if this is going to be a fastest lap attempt, just steal it away for some reason for Samaro. I'd assume that it is going to be. But again, fantastic race from Lilian. Fantastic race from everybody involved in the front bunch, I suppose you would say. There was a little bit of questionable racing in the midfield for the most part, but in the end, you can't deny Lilian, and you can't squabble with the pace that he has shown today.
Yeah, absolutely insane, an insane form, as you said. P1, then P2, then P1. Lilian is the force to be reckoned with going into the next few rounds. But yeah, didn't put a foot wrong there. He made the move when he wanted to. And he used that, used his pace, got the gap, and absolutely dominated. So a great drive from Lilian today.
Yeah, really a great drive. Speaking of great drives as well, like we said at the end of that race there, really big shout outs to Cordobaca as well for what is a P7 finish that could end up being slightly more if there are penalties further applied to Julian Klaffenbach for the incident with Benny Fabos. As it stands, though, that is your final race results, with Lilian coming home in P1, with Rishan at least on track taking home P2, but that likely won't be the case with the post-race penalties. So it'll be Jack Humphreys in P2, Noel Carmen in P3, with Andrew Karapi in P4, Klaffenbach with penalties still potentially yet to be determined, Cordobaca, Nitro Shooter, Andre Lopez, and Felipe Sousa rounding out your top 10. And that was the French Grand Prix, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. It was very, very fun to watch. Any parting words before we go off for the week, Alex?
I look forward to Austria. That's about it. Great race. Austria is going to be good fun to watch as well. I hope you all have a lovely week.
Yes, me too. Austria is very, very exciting. We'll see you then next week, same time, same place, Austrian Grand Prix.
This broadcast was brought to you by GT Omega, proudly supporting PSGL.